This is the Haiti We Know, a Healing Haiti podcast. Episode 3, Part 2, the crisis happening in LaPhito and Titanyen and how Grace Village is responding. With Mike McCain, CEO of Healing Haiti. This is going to be a big discussion about all that's happening in real time, daily, hourly, in Titanyen and really all around Haiti. So I've added a few highlights to the beginning of this reel so you can get a sense of what the conversation is going to be. Get ready, settle in, and hear how God is at work in Haiti. Thanks for listening.
Fleeing to what they thought was a safe area. And now it's not a safe area.
It's 24 refugees, and then it moved to 64 refugees, and then it moved to 100 refugees. And at that point, I don't think I really knew that Pastor Felix and his family lost their home.
No. He is a refugee currently.
Right. At night, as they're trying to sleep, they're hearing gunfire. They're hearing shootouts in the port, and they're scared. I see 8-year-old kids at Grace Village stepping in and becoming literally the hands and feet of Jesus, when really they should just be kids, right?
Yeah.
But they're more than that. And isn't that a picture of the gospel? That's why I have hope.
All right, Mr. McCain, what does my hat say that I'm wearing today?
Never fear the storm.
I wear this hat on purpose today because I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the storm. Lean in to the storm because you are equipped for it. Mike McCain, welcome back to the Healing Haiti podcast. This is episode 3, part 2. In part 1, those of you who have heard part 1, we talked about Cité Soleil and the crisis that's facing Cité Soleil over the past 2 years. And seemingly, Titanyen and Grace Village and our ministries there, like I said earlier in part 1, they were rolling along until 2 weeks ago. What happened? First, welcome back.
Thanks, Michael.
Could you explain a little bit about our footprint and our ministries in Titanyen? What is Titanyen? What is the village, and what do we do there before we get a little deeper into what's happening today?
Yeah, Titanyen, it's a village about 45 minutes northwest of Port-au-Prince. Mm-hmm. The history of Titanyen is pretty significant. It doesn't have a good meaning. In fact, in Creole, Titanyen means less than nothing. Mm-hmm. Most people don't seek this village out. And I love that we're there. Mm-hmm. I love that we planted roots in this village called Less Than Nothing. And that's where Grace Village is at. And I would say that's one of our hallmark locations where we do ministry. Grace Village is just this amazing ministry on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
It's got $1 million view. Literally, I mean, you overlook the Caribbean, you overlook the village, you overlook the port. It's just a beautiful setting in the foothills of Titanyen.
Yeah, some of the best sunsets on the planet are from that facility.
I think when our teams, they're usually starting in Cité Soleil, and they're delivering water, and then they serve in Port-au-Prince, and quite often the first thing that they come into in Titanyen is Grace Village, and they take a look at that view, and it's just this beacon of hope.
Mm-hmm.
They see the ministry, and they frankly see Haiti in a different light. They see the positives, and they see the progress, right? And that's really what Grace Village has represented for so long for the ministry. But Grace Village itself is composed of several different ministries. So we have Grace Clinic, which is a fully operational medical clinic in the region. It supplies healthcare to 14,000 people a year. Grace Academy is an amazing school that provides education to over 500 children. And most of these kids wouldn't have access to education without, this particular school, because we take on the kids that most schools just wouldn't take on.
Mm-hmm.
They can't afford to go to school, or they frankly haven't panned out at other schools. And we just say, come on in.
Yeah. As a side note on the school, that is the story, is that a lot of kids have been pushed out of other schools because they just aren't learning. They're not thriving in another school, and the schools cut them loose. Like,
Right.
you're not progressing. And Grace Academy is known for taking those kids and turning them into, university students. Quite a few of our university students were students that were kicked out of other schools, and then they thrived in this creative environment. A lot of them are the top of their class when they graduate. It's pretty
Right.
incredible.
I think statistically it's like less than 5% of all high school students ever move on to university in Haiti. And I mean, we have 22 university students
Mm-hmm.
out of this small school in Titanyen, less than nothing Haiti.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing.
it is really amazing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks for the side note.
Yeah.
On,
We like to do that, don't we?
we do.
Go down that
it's-
rabbit trail.
Yeah.
Um,
Just paint a picture of these ministries, and then how they have changed, and how we've invested in a town called Less Than Nothing.
Yeah, well, I talked about the clinic. I talked about the school, Grace Family Homes itself. So it is an orphanage as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have around 60 kids that live in family style housing. So they're not in a dormitory setting. They're in family housing, in family units with moms and sometimes dads, in those units, and they're growing up as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super important to us as a ministry. It's a pretty amazing environment,
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you have Grace Church, which is down the hill, and it's a community church. It's not just the church for our kids; it's a church for the community. And you have Fleri, which is our job creation, businesses, missions ministry,
Mm-hmm.
that's right next to the church. And then, I don't want to forget about this. I mean, our elder care program is housed within Grace Village as well. So those elders live in the community, but we have staff that work at Grace Village within our feeding center that are caring for those elders every single day. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm jumping all over the place.
I know. It's Grace Village or Titanyen in general. It's a big story.
It is.
And we could go deep into Fleri. In episode 2 we talked about that with Jake, so I think that's covered. But it's that whole job creation ministry also completely changed how we act, how we create a seismic shift in a local economy. That has really change the village. You don't think that one business could change a village, but that truly changed the village, where all of a sudden there's other restaurants popping up. The depots that we purchase from, they're painted now, and they have front verandas with little tables, and like the whole village changed because of our one business starting there.
Yeah, I think frankly, Grace Village didn't have the best reputation at one time. I think a lot of people saw us as caring for these kids that weren't even necessarily from the community, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of this inward focused ministry. I don't think that was the truth, but that was the perception. Yeah, I mean, when we were developing Fleri, and building the business plan and thinking about that ministry, we met with the local elders, and not elderly, but the local elders of the community. We had a pretty significant meeting with them, and we asked them, what are you looking for in this community? What would you love to see? What's your vision for Titanyen? And they listed off a number of things, and some of it we couldn't control. The Titanyen is one of those villages that doesn't have electricity. We can't provide that for the community, but what they really wanted was jobs. They wanted opportunities. And, as we were developing Fleri, I think that was a really cool thing that we could actually bring to the community. And really, Fleri started this sort of snowball effect of, you would watch businesses grow outside of Fleri as vendors came in, as we started to locally source our produce, locally source some of our products within Fleri. We began to see other businesses grow, in the community grow as a result. And then there began to be this shift, and you could see it. People understood what our heart was, and that was to empower Haitians, to leverage our resources, strengthen families, empower Haitians, and frankly, strengthen the fabric of the community. And you started to see that fabric strengthen, and the community began to rally behind Grace Village, instead of question it. And I think that's just been a super cool development that God has done over a period of time.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the feeding center. How many meals could you ballpark in a year, and talk a little bit about where we source that food from?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the feeding center, it feeds both our children that live at Grace Village and then the children in the community who attend our school. So roughly, you could say anywhere between 220 and 250,000 meals a year are prepared out of our feeding center at Grace Village.
Yeah, and a few of those meals are for us.
Yeah.
Because they're good.
They're really good.
So I never miss a lunch at Grace Academy. So out of that feeding center.
I know, I love it. It's amazing. It's really good food. But we source this food, and I think this is super cool. We source this food locally. And most of, like 70% of the foods in Haiti is actually imported, right? But we still try to locally source through businesses in Haiti that sell rice. So we locally source our rice in depots, either in Titanyen or in Port-au-Prince. We locally source all of our vegetables. All of our goods that our kids are eating are completely sourced, locally in Titanyen, which is, I think, a super cool thing. That's a differentiator for us. A lot of organizations will work through, larger organizations, to provide rice and things like that for the community. But, ultimately, I was talking about the community buy-in. They get when we're purchasing their product in their depots in the same community, and they see us doing that week in and week out, they understand we're investing in them.
If you have ever had a chance to be there and seen this market, it's truly a farmer's market. It's gigantic. And so all the farmers come from the mountains over once you get over the top of the mountain, the climate changes and it becomes real fertile and there's more rain. And so they come down on Tuesdays and Fridays with their mules, full of their vegetables to sell in this huge market in Titanyen. And that's where we get our fruits and vegetables from, and from our farm as well, from Fleri Farm. But that's just being part of the community, buying right in the big farmers market for all these hundreds of thousands of meals that are produced at the feeding center.
Yeah, I mean, you could imagine how much money is invested locally in Titanyen and what that does for that community. And we see it. We see the growth of those vendors, and they're able to plant more product and sell more product and maybe expand into other things. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. Okay. So we're, again, like we said, Titanyen is kind of out of the crushing blow of these gangs over the last year to 2 years. It's been primarily in Port-au-Prince and some other areas, and Titanyen really did not feel this, and so we were able to really, our ministries were able to move without any roadblocks, and we were thankful for that. We knew that Cité Soleil was hard and almost impossible to work in. We were doing the best we could, but it certainly wasn't. We certainly weren't able to impact the community the way we had been in Cité Soleil. And then all of a sudden, things changed 2.5 weeks ago in Titanyen. Explain a little bit about that. What happened and what's happening?
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to be careful. Sometimes you can just get too deep in it, right? Mm-hmm. But we were able to go back and forth between Port-au-Prince and Grace Village pretty easily.
Yeah, Route 9 was one of the areas when you looked at the map. There's these maps that come out that talk about what are gang-controlled areas, and Route 9 was one that was always still open.
Yeah.
It's not open anymore.
No, I mean, it's something that we had prayed about for the longest time, and we were praying because it was choppy for a while, but we could work through that. And then really a couple of weeks ago, it moved from choppy to closed.
Yeah, I mean, so that National Route 1 from the Olympic Center for at least 6 months, we've been hearing reports from our staff that there's the stream of refugees from that area. So when you get to the Olympic Center, you take a right. From that area, all those families were fleeing, and they were heading to the Titanyen direction. And those of you who've ridden on that road in the tap, that buzzy, fast road, that is pretty empty other than the occasional stop for a tap. But imagine that road lined with people carrying whatever possessions they can, day in, day out, over this last summer, fleeing to what they thought was a safe area. And now it's not a safe area.
Right.
So talk a little bit about, I guess, what happened with the gangs coming over by boat.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2.5 weeks ago, a gang came in and burned down the police station that was, in Titanyen itself. And we
right. On the corner, as you're turning up the gravel road, there's that little blue and white police station.
Right.
Now it's burned.
It burned to the ground. That was pretty quick. They came in, they came out. So that was really the first. Gangs have been in this area for a while. Okay, so it's not as if this community hasn't been insulated from it, but these are we're talking they're exposed to local gangs, right?
Regular times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They live in the community.
Yeah.
They grew up in the community. But now you're seeing a gang come in from Port-au-Prince, actually southern Port-au-Prince. They're not a part of this community,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you see this first act, and it happens pretty quickly. And then actually, as we were doing our podcast last week, the day before this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
this gang, from Port-au-Prince, it's like out of a movie.
Yeah.
They come through the bay on boats. It sounds like there's a couple of hundred gang members with automatic weapons, and they come into the LaPhito port.
Yeah, they stormed the beach.
They storm the beach.
Yeah.
With the intent to take over the port,
Mm-hmm.
just like G9 did with the Port Roux and the diesel terminals.
Mm-hmm.
The intent was the same. We're going to take this port and stop, anything from coming in or out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want to control the country, so they control the ports and they control the flow of any kind of goods. Okay, so they come into LaPhito and they ransack the village.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, 100% of that population that lived in LaPhito is gone. We know a lot of people that have lost their homes. Our pastor of Grace Church, his family lost his home. A lot of people homeless.
Yeah, that was the amazing part of, so Pastor Felix posted on Facebook just the other day about the church. He never once mentions that he's lost his house. He never mentions what's happening with him. It's all about what's happening with his community. And on his personal page, I thought that was admirable, that he's still focused on his congregation. He's still focused on his neighbors and friends and not at all himself. He is a refugee currently.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I started, as we were doing the podcast that day,
Mm-hmm.
in part one, I was looking at my phone. There's 24 refugees, and then it moved to 64 refugees, and then it moved to 100 refugees. And at that point, I don't think I really knew that Pastor Felix and his family lost their home.
Oh, so what did he do?
Yeah,
What did he do with this? What did he do?
Yeah, completely selfless acts. He opened up the church.
Yeah.
He invited people in. He invited his community in.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in LaPhito. There were 2 churches in LaPhito that can no longer meet, and those people now live in our church, which is it's pretty amazing that he totally thought about himself before anybody else. And then we saw just some pretty incredible things happen with our Grace Village kids and our mommies and our staff at Grace Village. We've always known we have special people,
Mm-hmm.
but in moments like these, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
It's been a week now.
Yeah.
Talk about what's happening, and I'm going to talk about my feelings about our
Yeah.
Grace kids.
Well, I mean, right away, we're a ministry, but we also have to think about these realities. The intersection next to Olympic Stadium is cut off.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get food back and forth. There's no diesel in the country, right? We're rationing our diesel at Grace Village. Food is hard to come by, and now you have 100 additional people, and you can't just house them, right?
No, it's easy to say we're open. We're a refugee center. There are logistics that are immediate after that.
Right.
Where are they sleeping? What are they eating?
Exactly.
Where's the bathroom? All this.
Yeah, there's a ton of responsibility with this, and
Yeah.
it's not something that you can just, okay, before you come in, let us get all this planned. No, it's an immediate thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, you see your staff jump into action and realizing that we're not raising kids. I mean, yes, we are, but they're like pastors. They're people of God that love the Lord and love their neighbors and like that want to serve. And so you saw mommies like giving up their money. You saw kids giving up their toys, giving up blankets, like wanting to serve this group of people that just lost everything.
Everything. I mean, there's these people left with just a backpack.
Right.
I mean, I saw the images. It's just some backpacks. That's all it is, because it happens so fast.
Right.
And they're fleeing for their lives. And so they have nothing, and then our families, our mommies and our kids, raid their houses to find out what they can donate to the church. And not only just donate, how do they step into action? Explain how they stepped in.
They befriended these kids. They didn't just give it from afar. They literally came down to the church, right? They served these families living in our church. They helped cook the meals. They brought the meals down. They worshiped with them. They prayed with them.
They were bathing the kids.
Yeah.
Like all the kids and those of you who've been there, these are all the kids you've known at Grace Village for the last 10 years or longer. And at first I didn't even recognize a couple of the kids. I'm like, oh, look at that nice couple with their baby. Like, no, that's our kids that now are young adults taking care of someone else's baby at the church. And I was just not blown away. I mean, I guess I knew that that's who those kids were. But like any parent would be, I was just so proud of those kids, as prideful as I would be if my own kids stepped up that way.
Yeah.
I think it's like, oh my gosh, like I was beaming with pride.
Yeah. I mean, and if you could imagine, so they've left their homes. They don't know if they're going to be able to go back. You think about these moms and dads who have lost everything, and now they're living in this church. Think about the burden, right, that they're carrying, that's on their shoulders. And then you have this group of kids that just come down and say, let me just take these kids for a bit.
Right.
Let's give you a minute. Our kids aren't necessarily thinking this, right?
Right.
But that's what's happening.
Right.
And you just see God at work through our kids, through our mommies, through our staff, saying, we have you. We don't know you, but you're family. We love you. We care about you. And we're here for you.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about what's happening at Grace Church for 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But I want to shift a little bit. So our kids and mommies come down to step in where they're needed desperately. It's not like they're sailing through life right now up at Grace Village. Grace Village is also seeing its own impacts from what's going on in Haiti. They can't be insulated forever. We try to keep it safe. We try to insulate. So what's happening at Grace Village today?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the midst of this, the fighting's still going down at LaPhito, right? So that hasn't stopped. So if you can imagine, I mean, these kids for the last 2 weeks, week and a half, whatever it's been, at night, as they're trying to sleep, they're hearing gunfire. They're hearing shootouts in the port. And they're scared, right? It's been a scary time for the kids. They've been insulated from that, and now it's just like Port-au-Prince is getting closer.
Yeah, I mean, so if you've been on a mission trip, occasionally you might hear gunshots when you're in Port-au-Prince in the night. You never hear that in Titanyen. I've slept at Titanyen countless times. It is perfectly quiet. There is zero noise, and Haiti is a loud country. It's like, I always say, it's like I can never find a quiet place
Right.
in the country. But boy, Grace Village at night, you can hear a pin drop.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I can't imagine how I would feel at Grace Village at night hearing gunshots echoing through that valley. It would be unnerving for me. It would be terrifying if you lived there.
Yeah. So they're doing this in the midst of trying to ration diesel, and that means that there's not lights on at night. It means, we during the day we have diesel on for a couple of hours for our generators, and during the nights we've been trying to do that, but frankly, the last couple of days, it's been blacked out. Our generators don't have diesel right now.
So what does that power generation do at Grace, and why is it so critical, and what does it look like without it?
Well, we have to have a generator at Grace because we live in a community that's literally not connected to the power grid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so our generators control like every power need that we have to operate the facility. The clinic needs it so that it can run its lab equipment, and so that it can take x-rays, and all of these things that you could imagine a doctor's office using, turning on the lights, any of that, operating our computers. We need power. If you think about the entire facility of Grace Village, we need power to operate our Wi-Fi in order to connect with the world. We need it for our school for the same purposes. It runs our computers, our Wi-Fi, everything you could imagine that operates a school. We obviously have a feeding center, so we have refrigerators, and goods need to be cooled down or frozen. We can't operate refrigerators without it. You got to charge your cell phone, right? All of these little things that you don't think about until you don't have it.
So the most basic thing that they haven't had for the last 2 days. So there's no water at Grace Village. And so where are they getting water from?
We have a well over between Fleri and the church, and that's a community well. And we have an electric pump that ultimately draws that water up to Grace Village. Part of the generated power that we do during the day has been to bring that water up. But without diesel, we have to go down to the hill, or down at the bottom of the hill, fill buckets, anything we can to bring that water back up to Grace Village so that we can have water for our kids. So what that means right now is you're just not able to take showers. You're not able to bathe like you would want. A lot of that water is used for cooking. A lot of the water is used for just, you need a lot of water to cook that much rice, for that many kids. So it's used for the bare essentials that we need, but that's an everyday chore that we have to do, that we never had to worry about before.
Yeah. And that also creates some real instability in the family homes.
Yeah.
Where the kids, where things are starting to get pretty rocky in Titanyen, and they're having to go further out into Titanyen. And also during this time, they also have been serving our elders.
Yeah.
Which has also been incredible to see. They've been bringing their musical equipment down, their guitars, and spending time with our elderly, because it's been a long time since we've had a team down there.
Right. And that's super cool to see. And we can't forget, I think we talked about this before. All of our staff has undergone pretty significant trauma in their lives. Most all of our staff has some form of PSTD. Our kids aren't insulated from that. Our kids have undergone significant trauma in their lives. And so while they're doing all these amazing things, and they're just we couldn't be more proud of them. They're doing just selfless acts every single day. They're also enduring pretty significant trauma in that they're hearing gunshots. They're fearful of gangs coming into their community. They're fearful of potentially losing their homes, right? Because there's rumors all over the place. And if you can imagine, our mommies and our poppies and our staff just trying to calm these kids down as they're dealing with, all of these fears and traumas that are being triggered every single day in their own life right now.
So your instinct would be to protect yourself and kind of recoil and shrink back from the world. And they're stepping out into the world.
Yeah. And that's where it's just, that's where you get super proud.
Yeah.
Not because of anything that we've done,
not.
right?
No,
but
it's not us.
But this is where you see God just, it's from God. You know that these kids love God. You know that these kids have a passion for God. And so they're stepping out in the midst of fear and serving their neighbor for nothing more than love of God and, love of the people around them.
Yeah, that's the thing about the people we've met in Haiti over the years is that you think, could you get more generous? Could you get more loving? Could you get more empathetic to your neighbor? No. I mean, I've never seen people so caring.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah. So, okay. Titanyen. So we're cut off from Titanyen.
Yeah.
So we have the guest house is kind of its own little island. And Titanyen is its own little island, and Cité Soleil is its own little island. It's basically the staff that is in place in each one of those sites are on their own, and they're making it happen. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And they, it's not like we can get payroll to anywhere on a regular basis. It's not that we can get food anywhere on a regular basis, but somehow each site is making it work.
Totally. It's hard to describe. Someone asked me this morning. I was talking to a partner of ours this morning. And they were asking, what is happening?
It's a big question.
And it's a really big question because what's happening is what God wants us to do, right? If we were in control of things, the entire ministry would be operating like a well-oiled machine, and right. But that's not what's happening. We're doing exactly. We keep talking about this. We're uniquely positioned. Yeah. We're doing exactly what we need to be doing in the moment. In Titanyen, we're still operating a feeding center. We're still located next to water. We have a church. We're serving elders, right? Even our teachers are coming up, and they're serving our Grace Village kids, and they're putting on these amazing conferences with their kids.
Yeah, talk about that. So we just got a WhatsApp message.
Yeah,
like 2 hours ago. What's happening at the academy? Because schools have not opened across Haiti yet for the year, for obvious reasons.
Right.
The country is unstable. Kids are not safe. Teachers are not safe to go to schools. So they haven't started yet. What's happening at Grace Academy right now, today?
Yeah, I mean, our teachers are coming to work, and they've decided that they're putting on a conference with our kids, and They're going to prepare them for school. And so they're talking about just psychology of how to prepare for life. And
Yeah, I'm going to look it up here.
yeah.
So it is an awareness and motivation campaign in educational psychology is what the school staff is doing since last week with the kids until now. And I'm like, what does that mean?
You know what? That means that life is hard right now.
Yeah.
And think about all the time that these kids have to think about what could go wrong.
Mm.
And these teachers, they know these kids.
Mm-hmm.
They know their names, they know their background. They understand their fears, and they're coming up and they're just loving these kids. That's what's really going on.
Yeah.
Right. They're sharing a word of God, and they're motivating these kids, reminding them that we'll get over this period of time.
Right.
And they'll go back to school. Right. And there's better things yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our teachers are doing right now. And that's amazing as well.
Yeah.
Because they live in the community, right? They're not insulated from this.
Mm-hmm.
They're in fear of losing their homes.
Mm-hmm.
They're not insulated from the fear of the gangs and what they're seeing. And yet they've just decided, I'm going to work today. I'm going to go up that hill, and I'm going to do my job. And there's not a single gang member that's going to take that away from me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty fearless.
Yes.
I talked about this verse, and we could just keep saying it over and over and over again. It's that Isaiah 54:10. I just cling to it. Though the mountains move and the hills shake, my love will not be removed from you, and my covenant of peace will not be shaken. And that's what we're seeing from our staff right now. It's what we're seeing from our mommies. It's what we're seeing from our kids. It's pretty amazing.
And what we're seeing from God. His love is unshaken for everybody we've encountered. Okay, so going forward, really this podcast is about telling stories about the Haiti we know, and the good stories, the small stories, to help people really understand what Haiti truly is and not what they just see on the news and what they see on social media, because social media and the news is wrong a lot of the time. Yeah. It's sensationalistic, and it can paint the entire population as unworthy of caring. So that's what we're trying to do here. And this podcast and the last podcast, it got a lot heavier, where we had to be really, honest about what's going on through our eyes and the eyes of our staff. What does their life really look like? Some of the questions I get, and maybe I've said this before, is why? Why should we care? Why should we invest? Why shouldn't we just walk away? It's too broken. Why? Why don't you walk away? Let's just make it personal.
Yeah.
Why do you not walk away?
Well, if not us, then who? Like, someone has to do this. And it doesn't mean that, believe me, I'm no hero. None of us are. But
truth.
If we claim to follow Jesus, right? And if we truly are hearing from him, then we have to learn and look at what Jesus did. And what Jesus would do in these moments is he would stop what he was doing he would care for the person in front of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, we're kind of forced to, but we're literally stopping what we're doing, and we're just caring for the people that God is placing right before us. It's just, this has to be from the heart. It has to come from this overarching call in our lives. And I think that God doesn't call his people to step away when times get tough. He doesn't call his people to step away when we're in the valley. That's when he calls us to press in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I sense, is that why is there hope? Because God's people, right,
Mm-hmm.
are in the midst of this. And that means God is in the midst of this, and he is going to do amazing things with it. And we've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're seeing revival happen in Haiti. We're seeing people come to Jesus because they're ripe to hear the gospel. And we're seeing in the midst of chaos some pretty miraculous things happen. And so that's why I have hope, right? I have hope because I see 8-year-old kids at Grace Village stepping in and becoming literally the hands and feet of Jesus, when really they should just be kids, right?
Yeah.
But they're more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it, the same heart in our mommies and our poppies and in our drivers. And it doesn't matter who it is. You just see Jesus. And isn't that a picture of the gospel?
Mm.
That's why I have hope. Yeah, I believe that the best is yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
I truly do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about what must this be doing to prepare us, right, for such a time as this, for now, but also for what's to come. I think God has some pretty amazing things in store for a lot of ministries, for a lot of people in Haiti that are weathering the storm. And if we can get through this, which I absolutely believe we will, oh my goodness, think about the mountaintop moments. There's just going to be that much better.
All right, Mr. McCain, what does my hat say that I'm wearing today?
Never fear the storm.
I wear this hat on purpose today because I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the storm. Lean in to the storm because you are equipped for it.
Yeah. And
we are equipped for this storm.
Totally. And I know we're trying to wrap up and whatnot, but honestly, like, I just don't know if people today are equipped for this storm, right? Like, we want to hit that mountaintop. And we're afraid of the valley. In fact, we try to get as far away from the valley as we can. But that isn't the story of the gospel, right? It's just not the story of God's people. And I don't know. I just feel like God's people should be ready for the storm, should be prepared for the storm, and should head into it because that's what God did. That's why I love the Haitian people, because they're battle tested, right?
Boy, yeah.
They are battle tested. They have been through this storm.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you view this through their eyes, are they tired right now? Yeah. Are they sick of this? Absolutely. Are they scared? Yeah. But they have this genuineness and this joy because they've understood what it means to never fear the storm. They understand what it means to be able to battle the storm. And they're able to maintain joy, right? And I think that's unique. And I think that that's what we as Americans could learn so much from these amazing people. Like, what does it mean to weather the storm?
Mm-hmm.
We're way off track.
Well, that's a good time to end it. Not off track. I think we've finally got on track. I'm going to look at this as a glass half full kind of person. But that's the truth. That's where we've been trying to get to through this entire podcast is that, man, this is one big storm. And we and the people we work with there have been prepared for this storm. But that doesn't make it easy.
Right.
So let's get it, and then let's get over it, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So say a prayer for our kids at Grace Village. They could use your prayer. It's not easy. So
It's not easy.
the next podcast, I'm going to switch it up a little bit on the next podcast. We're going to lighten it up. So get ready. But until then, thanks for listening. What do you want to say, Mike?
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for your prayers. We need to continue to pray. Please lean in. Okay?
We love you guys.
Yeah, love you.
Bye.
Bye.
To learn more about the ongoing work of Healing Haiti, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, or visit us at healinghaiti.org.